Hello everyone, David here with Jiu Jitsu Strength, and today I wanted to talk real quick about my observation in the types of strength that exist in Jiu Jitsu and how they're used, and then how they can be improved. And one of the other things is there's a fourth element that's not really a strength element, but it's more about conditioning, but I'll cover that in a second. So my opinion, observation is based on the fact that I've been a trainer for quite some time now. I'm moving into my 17th year as a trainer, and I've done 32,000 plus sessions. And having been doing jiu-jitsu for a while now, I've noticed that there are different elements, different systems at play. So we've got, in the strength department, you've got raw strength, you've got static strength or static hold strength. You can word it that way. And then there's relative strength. Then underlying all that stuff is conditioning. So I think I'll start with conditioning first. A lot of people work out. And what I mean by that is they go to the gym, they pump some weights, they're looking for maybe a sensation of feeling swollen or feeling that pump, the blood flow, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But unfortunately, a lot of people are lifting like bodybuilders and they're not quite aware of it. And again, muscularity, nothing wrong with that at all. But we're talking about jiu-jitsu here. So we're talking about how it relates to jiu-jitsu. If you're building big muscles for the sake of building big muscles, and then you go to jiu-jitsu and you roll with somebody who might also have some big muscles or maybe not so big, but their muscles have been conditioned to endure jiu-jitsu and, do 5-6 rolls, do some hard rolls, stuff like that, then what's going to happen is your muscles that are built for aesthetics are not going to be quite as ready as theirs that are conditioned for it. Genetics plays a big role in the way people look and the way their muscularity develops. So you might be matched up against some guy who's been doing pull-ups, push-ups, dips, and a lot of calisthenics, a lot of club bells, kettlebells, and not even really doing a lot of curls or bench press, but they got some muscles on them. And when you match up against somebody like that, you might be very surprised that even though you can bench a lot, you may not be able to control that person, or if you do, it can't be for very long and you gas out. So I wanted to touch on that. We're gonna come back to it. So let's go into raw strength. Raw strength is simply the ability to move weight, and in this case, a lot of it. So the way a lot of people will define your strength is how fast you can move X amount of weight. So for example, if I can deadlift, we'll use deadlift. If I could deadlift 200 pounds 3 times in a row, it will probably take me 4 or 5 seconds, maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more, but it'll take me 4 or 5 seconds to deadlift that 3 times, and that'll be 600 pounds. Another person could come along, no matter how much they weigh, whether they're lighter than me or heavier than me, and even if they're significantly heavier than me, and they could do 600 pounds on the bar and do 1 rep, and that will take them 1 second or 2 seconds. That means they're stronger than me. It's just raw strength. It's not a subjective thing. It's not open to opinion. They're simply stronger. Now, I weigh 165. I know there's a lot of men and women that are lighter than me that could deadlift 600 pounds or 500 pounds, that could deadlift 300 pounds quicker than I can do 300 pounds, right? But there's a lot of things I can do that maybe those folks can't. By the same token, if you could deadlift 600 pounds, but you weigh 300 pounds and you're 6 feet tall, you've got some problems because you're overweight. And again, relative to jiu-jitsu, you might be able to grab somebody and kind of manhandle them for a little bit, but there's other elements that we're going to get to. But back to the topic of raw strength, your ability to move X amount of weight. So if you can bench press, squat, deadlift, 1,000 pounds combined, you're quite a strong person no matter how big you are. So if you're over 300 on bench, squat, and dead, those are good numbers. You have a pretty significant amount of raw strength. Nothing wrong with having that in the world of jiu-jitsu. Now there's static hold strength. So one of the best ways that I train my clients with static hold strength is with bent over rows, because it's a safe movement because the weight's below you. You don't have to worry about it with, like, if you're doing a squat or bench press where the weight could fall on top of you, you fall with the weight and hurt your back or something. So when you're doing a bent over row, you could do a rest pause at the top static row where you hold for 2 seconds, descend, pull it back up, hold for 2 seconds. There's also the element of static hold strength where you might, instead of going 1, 2, 3, you actually might take 3 seconds to do that pull, hold for 3 seconds, and let it descend normal pace. But this is what I call static hold strength. Now, we use static hold strength a lot in jiu-jitsu, whether you're on the bottom or the top. Your ability to frame, your ability to hold somebody's lapel, hold somebody's pant leg, whatever it is, time under tension is a big element when it comes to jiu-jitsu that a lot of people outside of jiu-jitsu really don't use unless you're doing some sort of sport like rock climbing. Time under tension in rock climbing, those people are shredded. The ones that are really hardcore about it, they're very physically strong with carrying their weight around. Now they may not be able to out deadlift or bench press you, but the advantage they have is holding on for quite some time while they manage where they're going to go in space. And there's a giant value to that. Again, if you've been taking jiu-jitsu for a while, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you haven't, you've been doing it for a few months, you're not really aware of this yet, you'll find out eventually. The person doesn't even have to be bigger than you. They just need to be comfortable with their own body weight and holding on to stuff. And the way you do that is you train for it. So again, you could do this with kettlebells. You can do a kettlebell squat where you squat really slow, 3 seconds down, hold for 3 seconds, and then either explode up out of it, regular pace, or you could go 3 seconds back up. So it would take you 9 seconds. So imagine how strong you could get if you were doing a 30-pound kettlebell, holding it in your hand, or a 30-pound dumbbell, and it took you 3 seconds to do each portion of that. So it would take you 9 seconds to do 1 rep, and you did 10 reps. So it would take you roughly a minute and a half to do 10 repetitions of a kettlebell goblet squat, versus if you did 10 regular squats, it might take you 30 seconds, or maybe even less than that. Maybe it's like a second and change per rep. So, there's a lot of advantages to that static hold strength. Again, people who like did rock climb, and there's a couple other sports. For surfers, holding the position of being on the board, legs are usually bent, and when they're shredding up, again, legs are bent. They have to have that kind of stamina in order to endure the sport that they play. It escapes me the other ones that are like this, but I think you guys get the idea. Rock climbers, whether they're in the field or in a rock climbing gym, they have static hold strength. They're in position for a certain amount of time, and they have to be able to endure that muscle burn and that fatigue throughout their hands, their wrists, their forearms, all that musculature that they're using. There's not it's almost like a deadlift. There's not a muscle that's not being used. The next thing ties into the static hold thing, and that is relative strength. So back to raw. So let's give it some value here. Again, you can deadlift, squat, bench more than somebody else. You're physically stronger than them. You can do it quicker, easier. But can you climb a rope? Can you climb over a wall? Can you do pull-ups? Can you do medium to slow pace push-ups? Can you lunge? Can you run? Can you jump more than a couple feet off the ground? Can you do a 2-foot box jump? We're not talking anything crazy or superlative. We're just talking about some average things. Could you pick yourself up? Meaning, if you are a 200-pound person that deadlifts 200 pounds, bench presses, squats that weight, great. You most likely can pick yourself up. If you had somebody of equal weight laying on the ground that you wanted to rescue or something, could you pick them up, put on your shoulder, walk out? Probably could. But again, if you are overweight, you're 300 pounds, could you pick yourself up off the floor and do all that stuff? That's where you have to kind of close this gap, and they kind of have to meet. Yes, it's important to have raw strength, but it's also important to have relative strength. And one of the ways you can get that is you have to be at proper weight. Again, 5'6", I guess. I'm 5'6", 5'7", give or take. and I weigh 165 most of the time, and I can easily do pull-ups, push-ups, dips. I can run. I like to run. I jump rope, and I can pick people up that weigh definitely more than what I weigh. So I have what is called relative strength. I have an element of raw strength that's, you know, good enough, I believe, for the sport of jiu-jitsu. I've never been overpowered by somebody my size or even a little bit bigger than me, but people much bigger than me, of course, they're just bigger, and that's just how it goes. But static hold strength, I practice it. You know, you do pull-ups where you hold the top. You know, you do bent over rows where you hold the end game there. You hold that pulled part. You do static hold lunges where you lunge across the floor and you hold the bottom for 1 or 2 seconds. But all those things, if you think about them and you think how they might apply to a jiu-jitsu roll, you're going to have to use an element of raw strength. If you want to pass somebody's closed guard and you grab their lapel and you stand up with them and their legs are still wrapped around you, that's demonstrating raw strength. Now, can you stay up there for 30 seconds or, you know, 15 seconds while you try to pop their legs open? Okay, so now you're using some static hold strength, right? Now, then can you hold on to that person with that one hand while you set them back down, move their legs? That's probably showing a little bit of relative strength if they are weighing what you weigh. And then can you maneuver around them? You know, there's a lot of different flow companies out there. You know, what I mean by that is like there's like Tac Fit, there's Gymnastica Natural, there's Animal Flow. There's these flow folks out there that these things all evolved from one person who is a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt and a Brazilian as well, who developed Gymnastica Natural, basically to show that you have to be able to move your body through space, not just move that other person's body around, so that you can evolve and kind of develop your own game. So if you're a heavy, pressure passer, cool. If you are a finesser, cool. If you are technical, cool. If you're a brute, cool. Those are all good things. Nothing wrong with being those things. But the one thing you want to be is you want to have a universal and a very balanced element of strength when it comes to how you are exercising your sport. How are you going to develop your game? Because it can't be one-dimensional. If you've been doing this for any length of time, you know that you have to be able to kind of flow with it. You kind of have to be like an octopus. You have to be able to change your shape, change your form, change your color, change your attack. You have to be pliable. You have to be strong. You have to be dangerous. There's a lot of things here. So again, just to cover what I just said, I believe that there is 4 different elements to this game. The first one is raw strength. Second one is static hold strength. Third one is relative strength. And then you combine all that and you train properly. You don't just work out, but you train with some focus. Maybe use a timer when you do certain movements, and you condition your muscles to endure that, depending on what your level is, you could be doing, 15, 30, half hour long competitions, or like the people who are just starting or doing, your traditional time frame of competitions and rolls. You're working on 4 to 6 minute long rolls and competitions, and you will have those elements all in play, and you'll be able to max out, kind of like a fighter on a video game. You'll be able to max out all the different elements of what you need to succeed at jiu-jitsu. So thanks for watching. If you liked it, please subscribe, hit the like button, and we'll see you next time. Bye.